We are now recording.
All right, call this meeting to order at 2:09. Go ahead, town manager.
Town manager would like to introduce to you our intern. Stand up and tell them who you are and where you're from and all those kinds of things.
My name is Grant Smith. I go to Longwood University, and I'm here until May. I'm a math and economics major, and that's about it. Interesting.
So you know, this is a committee, a standing committee of the town council, created by charter. We have a health and ordinance committee designated by the charter. We have street and light. We have multiple different committees. This committee considers the rules, the policies, the ordinances in the town.
Okay.
And these are three members of town council: Mr. Nash, Robert Thompson, who's the president of council, vice mayor, and Lee Scott, who's the chairman of the committee.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Welcome.
Adopt a truck, building materials, yuck. We've had, and why I bring it to you, we've had a couple head knockers over there in the Broad Street, kind of East End area, and there's another one on High Street right now, kind of ongoing. The town has, as a matter of practice, if somebody puts out some 2x4s or a small amount of stuff, we usually just grab it and pick it up. But the county has been getting more particular about taking building materials, okay? And the piles have started to get it bigger and bigger and bigger. And as you know, with town, when we condemn a property and we have to tear down the building, we have to have an asbestos certificate. And that's the reason why they don't take it, because it's not cleared asbestos-wise. Now, if we have a load of pallets or things like that, and there's some 2x4s we picked up, the county really hasn't been busting us on that or giving us a hard time. And if a property owner comes out and says, hey, I just refinished my bathroom, and we know there was a fellow on Tavern Street not long ago that was doing some work on his own home, and we took a small amount, but I've really had to crack down a little bit because we've been getting some really big piles. And I don't think the county differentiates between little piles and big piles. We just really got to be careful about building materials. Because what would happen is the county wouldn't be ugly about it, but they would ask for an asbestos certificate. And if we can't provide it, then we got to carry it to Amelia, okay? And so I told the fellow over on Broad Street I could not take it, specifically because building materials are not permitted at the county landfill without an asbestos certificate. And that, if you get a call, or I guess Mr. Tucker's ward over that way, but that's what's going on. There's one on High Street right now, and I spoke with the property owner today, as a matter of fact, and then they're going to secure the building, but we just can't take the materials. And I can tell you the siding on that house is all asbestos. Now, if you just look at it, it's kind of that scallop shape, older siding.
Are we going to adopt a policy, or will
I think the policy is in place.
Do we have to tweak it any?
do we have a policy?
Yeah, I think there's a policy, and that is the county's policy. Building materials, and if we want to have something in writing, we can, and that may be the easiest thing that we can hand out to folks when they get a building permit or something like that. We just got to be cautious about taking that stuff. I still don't want to get to the point where we two by fours lay on the side of the road for 6 months because we're at odds about picking it up. But the appreciable amounts we got to be really careful about, okay? Because I don't want to get stuck with a load of it sitting there.
When you start seeing insulation and siding, that's
Bingo, yeah. One of the things that I've been doing is we've been offering adopt a truck, okay? And sometimes we're finding building materials end up in those adopt a trucks. The adopt a truck is a sweet deal for everybody. The reason I like to do adopt a trucks is because people don't throw it out on the side of the road. A bathtub, a bunch of sheetrock. I think over on Tunstall Avenue, the town and the property owner were at odds, and I think they threw out a bunch of display cases with glass. It was a real mess. I think the adopt a truck is a whole lot better. Put it in there, and then we'll haul it off, even if we got to bill them. The town's policy is $25 for an adopt a truck. Okay, I really do need to get. The policy is $25 for an adopt a truck. We have not been charging ruthlessly about it, and the reason why we got to think about this is if somebody says, I don't want to pay the $25, I'll just throw it out on the side of the road and let you come get it. So I'm not sure the $25 works to our advantage, and we haven't been charging it.
as long as they pay the tipping fee.
And usually they ask the guys who it is, because there are some folks that have outstanding invoices at the landfill, and it's because the county won't let them tip in the landfill. We didn't know that, but we would leave an adopted truck. They'd fill it up, we'd carry it out there, and they're like, where did this come from? So they ask our guys now where it comes from, okay? And they're sending the property owners a bill directly, okay? I'm afraid to really put my foot down on the 25. If you guys want me to, I will. I mean, it's not something I'm trying to throw a gauntlet down, but what I am trying to do is keep people from throwing stuff on the side of the road. If you drove down Main Street yesterday, somebody put 5 or 6 mattresses out on Main Street. It looked really tacky. It was bad news. It would have been so much better if we'd have just taken in the truck over there and throw the mattresses in the truck and be done with it. I'm afraid we may end up with an appreciable amount of stuff on the side of the road. People don't want to pay the $25.
I'd say
Okay.
keep it as it is. I mean, just simply because, like you said, you would have just people just dumping stuff in.
So
And how
no
do you?
charge?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would.
And I haven't been charging anybody, but I do think we have the ability to charge. But I think the town ran into some tough times over on Tunstall Avenue. You probably remember, you may remember, a bunch of display cases and things in and out of the side of the road, and the town wouldn't pick them up because he wouldn't pay and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I do believe we should still charge for the tipping, whether that's the county or the town.
I think the
whatever.
county is charging for the tipping, so what we may need to do is, whenever we get an adopted truck, make sure the adopted truck form goes to the landfill so they can directly send the invoice to the property owner.
What we do is the form that I drew up has the person's name, phone number, address.
Perfect.
And they give that to the guy.
That's how they've been finding out where it's coming from. So as long as we continue with that, and the direct invoice that we get, or the county prepares, goes to the property owner, I'm cool. I don't think we need to get $25 to park a truck, because it is saving us the headache of going up there and clamshelling it up. Okay?
Do you need something for the building? Are you gonna do a form for the building materials or
Well, we don't want to do the building materials.
add it on to it?
Well,
When
We
people-
can't accept it.
I'm sorry, when people call, I tell them, and we tell them, you cannot put building materials in the adopted truck, so you can, when they call for those, we tell them we don't accept building materials.
I think what we may need to do, though, when Jennifer, if she's doing that form and it's working really well, just attach maybe a statement. No building materials are allowed.
What does building materials include?
Classified
Well, it's not pallets. Well, let's let the county define it. Let the county give us the determination. If it's just naked wood or boards, are they going to turn that away? Sheet rock, they'll probably turn that away. Any of that? So maybe we get the definition of building materials from the county. There you go. Perfect. Beautiful. But that's why we're not charging $25, because I don't want to have to send Ricky down there to go get it. Are you here for Potbelly Pigs? Mr. Chairman, can we go to Potbelly Pigs?
Yes, sir.
Potbelly pig.
I don't know that much about potbelly pigs, but I can simply report to you that the town's ordinances permit 4 domesticated animals. And when we say domesticated, we're talking cats or dogs, in whatever combination, 3 dogs, 1 cat, but you're allowed up to 4, okay? And you're allowed to have chickens, and a certain number of chickens, and none of which can be a rooster. Other than that, I don't think we really have any accommodations for goats, livestock, any of those kinds of things to be allowed in town. And I think there was perhaps an article in the paper not long ago and some discussion about potbelly pigs, and I think that person is here. And if you'd like to hear from them.
Victoria Moore? Okay. They do have a copy of all the information that you sent to the mayor. Yes, so they do have a copy of all that in their packet. So if you want to come up here and speak, you're more than welcome.
Well, first I'd like to say after I turned in the packet to the mayor, I've done some more research about towns and counties in our area. Right now, Chesterfield County, Powhatan, and Richmond are all going through the same situation with changing their ordinances. They found quite a number of people actually have potbelly pigs in the house, and they're basically keeping them a secret because of the old ordinances. Everything that I've found, typically the ordinances are coming under having no more than 2 in your house. You have to get them registered with a $25 or a $50 fee like you would your dog every year. And you have to present vet certification that it truly is a mini pig and not a farm hog, so that it stays within the 150, 200 pound range at most. When most people think of a 200 pound pig, they're thinking that's a big pig. Really, you're looking at about this tall and about that long. He's a very short, stout package.
Have one?
I have 2.
You should have brought them today.
I thought about it because they are leash trained and they do tricks. They're just like a dog. They listen.
When
But-
you mentioned the fact that they have to be, I guess you have to get a letter of acceptance from the vet. I mean, it does, I'm sure, I wouldn't say deter a lot of people, but it'll make people have to jump through the hoops if they want to get a legitimate one.
That's true. The bad thing is, you know, if you go on Craigslist right now, you're finding anybody's just trying to make money. You know, they'll tell you, oh, you're going to get a teacup pig and he's going to fit in the palm of your hand forever. And they charge $400. It's a lie. There's no such thing as a teacup pig. They're minis and they just happen to be bred to stay small. But that small pig, if you overfeed it, can easily get to 400 pounds.
And do these, I don't know, and I mean, not sure what other localities do, but do they have to be, dogs have to be vaccinated? I mean, does a pig have any vaccinations they have to
There
have?
is no approved vaccination for them. There are a couple of vaccinations that they can give depending on your area if you have certain bacteria in your soil. Around here, my vet said there's absolutely no reason to put them through that torture because
I didn't know
pigs
if there
do
was a
horrible with
rabies vaccine or
vaccinations.
whatever that they need to.
They aren't very susceptible to rabies at all. It's very rare for one to get it, so with it only being approved for cats and dogs, most vets tell you don't do it.
So will he bite?
He can.
I know he can't.
Usually it's more of a accidental type thing.
Uh-huh.
If they get upset, they'll kind of swing their head and you'll just kind of, you know, hit their teeth. But as for attacking, unless you've just shoved him in a closet and ignored him, you know, he's going to be sweet and lovable. They're very
Do they really
herd
just lay like
people.
under the Christmas tree?
They do. Mine open his Christmas presents. They come in the house and lay in front of the fire and play with the cats. They love the cat.
So is that one of the larger ones right there?
That is a coon.
Okay.
And we actually have one of the nation's biggest breeders right up the street from us, in McKinney. And she's one of the ones that imported them in about 15 years ago.
Now, is that one yours by chance?
That one is not. That's one of my friends from online,
But that
but
doesn't
he's
look
about
big.
2 years old.
And is that about as big as that one?
He might get a little bit longer and put on a bigger belly, but he won't be much bigger.
So they're house trained just like a dog.
You can, yes. They will be litter box trained, or you can train them to like ring a little doorbell and they'll go outside and use the bathroom outside just like a dog would. You can harness train them. They do tricks. Teaching mine, they actually learned faster than the dog would. I could teach them anything within under a week.
I think the biggest issue would be if someone, how do you keep them from being stuck out in a pen outside next to a neighbor's house? And obviously, everybody has the typical mindset of a pig's nasty.
Exactly.
And just leaving the pig out there and it's just rooting up the whole area and defecating everywhere and stinking. And
That would definitely be an issue. And
So
my
that-
other thought was our kennel for the animal control cannot house a stray potbelly pig. As it's just really not set up for it. And our closest rescues are in Afton, Virginia, the Staunton, Virginia, where the last one went to, and then there's one way up north. So you're looking at a 3-hour drive if you get a stray. People, of course, still turn them loose because their tiny little potbelly pig got bigger than they thought. I work with rescue groups myself that run the East Coast and the Midwest, transporting rescues and strays. But that would be definitely a concern if something came up and one got loose, and you'd have to figure out where to house him.
So how many do you have?
I have 2.
A girl and a boy?
Do you live in town?
I do not. I'm out in the country towards Amelia.
so
But
that would be my, I mean, if they're house trained and stuff like that, what they do in someone's house really isn't, I guess, our say. My concern would be, how do we regulate where they're put up next to a property line? I mean, the care that they receive, because it's obviously not a farm animal. It's more of a domesticated pig.
it is, really.
So, but you don't want residents
Well,
treating
I
them
did
as a
see
farm animal.
that with Chesterfield County reviewing it, they're actually making sure the community, like the suburbs and stuff, you have to have on your own, go around to your neighbors and verify that, hey, we don't mind that you have a pig and that you walk him through the neighborhood or he comes in the yard. And honestly, if you really want to have an exotic animal like that, I feel like you should have to jump through that hoop to take a step. And it shows you've done your research and you know that this just isn't your typical cat or dog.
There are people in town that have dogs that don't take care of them, and
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so if they have pigs, they're gonna do the same thing.
That's true. I actually saw one on Craigslist back in the summer that just showed it was in Blackstone, and they had him shoved in a dog kennel out back. No bedding materials, just tiny little bowls, and the pig actually looked extremely underweight. If I'd had room for him, I would have taken him. They only wanted $25 for him. But to
So-
know that they do that, it does
Jennifer,
bother
can
me.
you look and see, like, she mentioned Chesterfield, can you look and see and get back to us what their
What they come up
policy,
with.
what kind of hoops you have to jump through to have them, and what the
I believe
regulations are?
WBTV just aired a special on it in January and has a big write-up in their newspaper if you search it for Chesterfield County.
Just get any other localities, I mean, I don't see an issue with it if they're in someone's home, but I see obviously neglect, and then it becomes an issue because the animal control can't take care of them, so there needs to be more hoops for people to be able to have them.
And then you got people that's gonna just try to get a regular
Pig
pig.
or hog, whatever.
That's where the good thing about when you take them to the vet to get them neutered or spayed at 2 and 3 months old, that you get that
That's why,
certificate.
if you get a certificate, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then we have people, it's either 4 dogs, 4 cats, 2 dogs, 2 cats. But then we have people that probably have 6 dogs, and then they may try to get more.
I
than-
know people that have 3, 4, 5 pigs in the house,
Well, I would
but
think
it's a handful. I'd
The
say no
number-
more than
The number
2.
of pigs would be included in your animals, I would think.
Definitely.
So
And just
if
so
you
people
have,
follow that.
if you have 4 animals, 2 can be pigs, 2 can be dogs, whatever it be.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it could be 4 pigs, but
Well, I knew somebody in Nottaway County that had one.
so if you would, I mean, I don't think we can act on it right now.
Well, if you guys need any more information or research or anything, like, I know Amelia County does it on a per-person basis. You have to come forward and present that you know what you're doing, that this is what you're getting yourself into, and they actually have to approve and give you a license for
If
it.
someone really wants a pig, I mean, if you lived in Blackstone and you wanted to bring your pigs to Blackstone, you would do that, and you wouldn't have an issue with it, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you would care for them.
I had to, when I lived in North Carolina, and I had to do the same thing when I moved to Kannapolis, to that county. I actually had to go to the town board and present to them, I've had these pigs for 6 years. They're inside, outside. I showed them pictures and videos of how they live, and, that they didn't tear up my yard like most people would think. I kept them clean, and they got approved and got their license. I just paid $25 a year to show that I took them to the vet.
How long do the potbelly pigs live?
Typically about 18 years. Of course, that's just like, they say your dog will live 12 years, but something might happen in 5 years later.
So I've got this, your email that is from the mayor, so if I have any questions or need any help, I can just email you.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Not a problem.
Okay.
All right, well, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
You wanna go full attachment?
We can, or we can deal with Jack and do that. Whole attachments, very briefly. I have talked with Tessie, and Tessie is going to have to you a draft ordinance. And in the meantime, Dan is counting poles and doing things and trying to determine, believe it or not, we don't own every light pole in town. A lot of them are Centel or the telephone companies, and so I dare say if we charge, they may charge us. So, but the attachment fee should be about $7 a pole.
I did talk to Dan yesterday, and he mentioned that when CenturyLink needs a pole put up, or Shentel, whatever.
We put 'em up.
We put them up. Are we charging for that?
I don't know if we are or not. I don't think so.
If not, we need to, I
I
believe.
think Dan said no, didn't
Yeah, we need
to.
I don't think we're
We
charging.
need to charge for it.
Shouldn't tell us everything.
More than happy to. More than happy to. But I don't know what the arrangement was 30 years ago when
Yeah.
the town and they agreed to it. I don't know.
Year contract or?
There may be. I haven't signed anything since I've been here. But before I say you got to start paying, I'd like to find out what did they give the town in exchange
I mean, a citizen of Blackstone shouldn't be.
back when Richard Lee was there.
To be.
Agreed. And let me just find out what the arrangements are, the agreement were. If there's nothing in place or nobody had a handshake even or whatever, then we'll get it started. All right. Downtown Historic District. Historic Business District. I have a couple of questions, and I've read the information that was included. This is the Blackstone Historic District, just for clarification. This is the one that was adopted.
he? The one with no color on it.
Yeah.
That was adopted in 1990. Okay, and that was the one I think Bill Armbruster had come up with. so that people could use historic tax credits like the Gables and places like that, the downtown included. That was the one in 1990. There are no mandatory measures associated with it. So Jack Bull has a paint peeling off his house or something. There's no maintenance obligations, or a lot of people have asked me about house colors and all. There's no specific obligations. This was done so that people could, if they chose to, use the historic tax credits or the benefits or the financial or otherwise that they could use to get their house in room.
So when, Miss Lucy painted her house pink, that did not concern the town because, correct, is that what you're
I
saying?
just said colors, I didn't say. But
But
yes,
I mean,
that is an example where people are like, is she allowed to paint her house pink?
Right.
Yes, because it's not, it doesn't have to be reviewed because it's not in the downtown historic district, the DBI review.
Which I'd hate to be going to people and say, and especially in a residential area, where you're saying,
You open up a can of worms.
oh yeah. And technically, her house is of period. I mean, that color is probably what the house may have used to be.
She said it was something,
That's what she said.
you know, there's certain colors that are very popular, and there's a sea or a beach resort in New Jersey or something, Cape May or something, where they have houses that are similar to that. But this district and the boundaries thereof do not have specific obligation for the property owner, okay? We do have a building code in that district, so you gotta have a, you know, meet building code, but we have not adopted either a maintenance code portion of the building code or guidelines for this, okay? Moving back, since I've been here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this the boundary, the next one, that has been on the town's website?
No,
No.
that one is incorrect. When Elizabeth Farina came, that's what she presented.
Okay.
But Zach says that is not correct.
That is
So
not
council
correct.
has approved this one, so we need to fix that.
If you overlay
And the other one
the
is.
new one in there, you're adding a significant number of folks to the historic district. You know that.
But they don't want to do that.
You could have told Doug Colburn you're gonna put him in the historic district, and then you're in the historic district for whatever.
No, now, this is what it should be.
I just caution you guys, because if you take this old historic district boundary,
This one should be it, not the one that extends down here.
if you take this boundary, the old one, and you overlay one of these two, the one that you say is not valid is the one that matches it.
Yeah, the only thing that's different is Joe Colburn's
Doug Colburn's building.
ability to.
Okay, hold
And
on.
I've always functioned under the assumption that he was out,
Okay, so,
or that building was out, I shouldn't say he.
okay, so what happened, okay, so this is the one that
Yeah, and I don't know what happened, so
Right.
you guys take it from here, but,
Elizabeth Farina, when she was working for DBI, you know, we were updating the historical business district. The map that extends,
On page 2,
hold on,
am I,
let me get
what page am I
another
looking at?
copy. Hold on, let me get another copy.
The next one. That's the incorrect one that Elizabeth gave us supposedly. The
Okay,
next page.
so when
Next page.
Elizabeth
The one
did
with the
this,
yellow is the one that's wrong.
when
That's the
Eliz-
one that's wrong.
when Elizabeth,
You're fine. Come around.
Hey.
Come behind Lee.
okay, so when Elizabeth did this, she added this bottom portion here,
Okay.
okay? That's what y'all approved with the new ordinance. But it should have been, according to Zachary, it should have been this one. And the map on the very last page here is what the Virginia Main Street program has adopted. And that's, they did not ever approve this one that Elizabeth submitted. So we need to go back and change the vote from council and go back to this original one. But now, the original one does include the mayor's office, right? So this one does not include the mayor's office. It looks like,
this document does not include the block
no,
where
no,
the
this one,
newspaper is. What he is saying is valid, does include the current record.
right.
And I don't know if they've ever been notified or any of that kind of stuff. I don't know the
But
situation.
it says all the streets.
I don't know if they've been notified.
But anyway, so this one is not correct according to Virginia Main Street. Correct? This one is not correct, but that is what y'all approved in the ordinance. This one is the one that should have been approved. And it does include the mayor's office. Correct, okay.
So what implications, being that that's the only affected property owner?
But it does not, see, that's my question. The boundaries that you're being asked to formally endorse or the ones that Main Street and DBI have endorsed, do not overlay with the historic district. I should think that they should overlay with the historic district, and that's why that block around Doug's building makes me question, hold on,
Why?
why do they not? I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying I know any more than anybody else, I just look at that one block. The historic district that was adopted in 1990 specifically cut that block out. I don't know if that was because of a request or whatever, but it does seem odd that that
So you're
one block is
saying
cut out.
this doesn't coincide with what, okay.
What is being asked to be done. If you look here, and I'm not saying I know the answer, I'm just saying, if you look at that historic map that was adopted in 1990, there is a specific notch cut out of it. In 1990, remember, that building wasn't there. Remember, the Courier was downtown where the cafe or the Mexican restaurant is. Okay? If you go to this, look right there,
I see it.
and you see that notch. Is that it right there? No,
No, right here.
right there. All right? There's a specific notch around that.
Where is it? You can't read the writing. Okay.
Okay?
Looks like it's the current CenturyLink building and Doug's, and the old Masons.
So that was in 1990. It was specifically excluded. I assume for a reason. I don't know. I wasn't here. I don't know. All right? The map that Elizabeth asked you to adopt does have that same notch out of it. Okay? But what Zach is proposing, or what Main Street has endorsed or included, that now includes Doug, even though, and I say Doug, I shouldn't say Doug, that block, okay? That block, albeit outside the historic district, is now suddenly
Be in it.
in the historic district, in the historic business district. And I think both district boundaries need to,
Coincide.
at least everything within the historic business district should be inside the historic. They don't have to be exactly the same, but the historic district should be larger and should incorporate everything in the historic business district.
So now everything in this outline,
Is what Zach is saying is correct.
so that last page in your packet, that's what Virginia Main Street provided. So that shows you maybe a little clearer.
But before we approve and go with that map, should we not ask those property owners that were not included in the previous one?
I think we're gonna create a heck of a question. I don't know if it'll be controversial, but certainly a question. I've told people before, you're out, and this map is showing them in.
Correct.
Okay? So I think we probably, and I hate to confuse things, but I do think we probably need to just be sure.
Right.
And if we are sure, then we need to notify people who I have specifically said, you don't have to worry about this historic stuff because you're outside of that yellow boundary. Okay? Specific to that block around Irvin Street, okay, where your church is and all that kind of right there. All right. And whatever it is fine, as long as the property owners are cool with it.
Yeah,
It's fine with me. But we just gotta make sure.
because currently, like you said, it's carving out CenturyLink, the Masons Lodge, Christie
Old one was
building.
specifically doing that, and the historic district specifically did that. But what is being proposed by DBI now, and
Includes it
with
all.
Zach, does now incorporate that block.
All of
And there may
it.
be others, but that's the one that sticks out to
So
me.
say like Christie Aviles, if she wanted to paint the side of her building, which she has done recently, she would have to go get approval.
And she did.
She is in the district, Christie would be included.
Okay.
It's just CenturyLink, the Curry
Okay, and
record.
Curry Record.
She is.
Including the Masons Lodge, is that in?
That's a question, if you
Yeah.
change it.
That's for sale from what I've heard.
Am I allowed to speak now, or do I have to wait till?
The chairman will recognize you.
Speak, Ms. Wayne.
I thought you too.
Yes, ma'am.
Come.
If you would come to the podium, because we're recording this.
It's been some time since I worked on the historic district, and I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the grant for a guided tour back in the old cassette days, cassette recorder days, anyway. I recall, my name is Doris Wynn, I live on College Avenue on the third block, in the middle of the third block. And when Jimmy Wooten and Arlene Harris worked on this, when we all worked on this, my recollection is that was left out because the original buildings were not the same architecturally. It's my recollection.
There was anything before the Courier on that block, was it? In that block? It was empty.
There was, is that where the theater was?
No, there used to be a, What's the name of Mr.
Nottawa Theater,
What's that?
They used to be in this lot that,
where the Curry record is now.
where the Curry record
So
is.
you're saying like the telephone building and
It
the
was a
main
wooden
facade
building.
lodge
I do
were not
remember that.
architecturally the same as.
Was
They
it
were
a,
not considered
Did Miss
architecturally
Banny Williams on?
significant.
Yeah.
It was a restaurant, wasn't it? It was on, yeah, Banny, Miss Williams
on
owned it.
that lot.
I don't know
And
what
all of the records, I suspect, I don't know if they're in the library from this, some of them should be, but Arlene Harris had everything. And of course, that's not going to help us now.
I just think if it's gonna be in the historic business district, there's a reason why it was left out of that
And-
historic.
and to my
district. It should- the
recollection-
boundaries be the same.
To my recollection, that is correct. If you want the expert on it, the one who gave a lot of time, free, the curator of Ashlawn, and the one who redid the Capitol in Richmond, Jimmy Wooten, I believe he's retired now. If you can catch up with him in retirement, he would be a good person, and he does live in Charlottesville. And he, I think he drove to Richmond. I don't think he ever moved for that. When you're talking about the historic district, you're talking about going up Church Street?
Well, the original historic district, I assume that you and Arlene and everybody worked on back in 1990, has a pretty broad boundary. It goes down towards ViewMac, I think.
That's the historic district, but I'm wondering if you all are distinguishing the business district from that.
We are.
That's
Yeah,
what I
we're talking
thought.
about the maps, yeah.
That's really all I want to know.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn.
You're welcome.
So Zach, is there a reason? I mean, obviously it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really matter that much. But is there a reason that Virginia Main Street recognizes it as including that block? Or could it just been an oversight?
I guess when they created it, which was back, to my knowledge, in '07, when DEI was becoming real, it just as an inclusion in terms of, I just don't think they carved out individual areas to keep it, very
Yeah.
uniform. But I don't know when they're in, I don't know why.
I'm not, I don't think the property owners there know they're in a historic business district, and I've probably told them they're out.
I've
Quite
told
frankly.
Billy before on many occasions, he says he isn't, but he won't.
You know, there's the conflicting.
Well, I mean, since obviously there's only 2 property owners, 3 possibly, within that carved out area, I would think before we approve anything or ask anything of council,
Notify them.
notify them and
Yeah.
ask them.
Do they wanna be in it?
Yeah, because I don't wanna shove something down someone's throat that all along they thought they're not in and they really are, or either way, so. And I don't think it makes a big difference for Zach.
Is if you change it, if they just come back to you and say, we don't want that at all, and then council wants to change Virginia Main Streets, it will never matter, respectfully, if council changes it if we don't go through Virginia Main Street, which was never done,
Yeah.
I guess, because they have to be the ones to approve.
So as I understand it, we'd like to write a letter to those property owners we believe that were initially out in the historic district, that were then included, and wherever the conflict or the discrepancy is, we'll notify them, GBI, town, will notify those folks, get the response back, and if they say they specifically want to be in or don't want to be in, we'll come back to council and you endorse going to Main Street and asking for the boundary modification.
Explain to them as to what the benefit is to be in the district. I mean, right now you can get, what,
But we're not
$5,000?
adding this part in, right, okay, correct.
But I do want to be sure if we clarify that, because I don't want to create language that can open the doors to any building.
For people to admit themselves.
Saying we don't want to be included. So-
This is a strictly one-time deal, I believe, just because of discrepancies in the maps.
I think you may find out specifically that some people may not want to be in it, or don't believe they've been in it, and are not really begging to
I
get
would like
in.
to work with the town on the letter, because there's no negatives in my,
Yeah.
if you have design issues, we'll work with you. We're not making them go to the next level steps of government.
So you give me a draft letter, and we'll work with you on getting the addresses and all that kind of stuff before we do anything.
And one thing real quick before we move on page 3, after the map, of the ordinance, it's after the map that's wrong. And it says, okay, right here, where it says recital. Okay, I just have a question here. The town council hereby declares that the area designated by the attached map within the historical district, shouldn't that be historical business district? Y'all agree with that?
Because if you look at the dates of the ordinances, those are well after the historic
I have
district.
read through this and made some changes, just like grammatical changes and stuff, but I just wanna make sure before I added the word.
And I think it
business
should,
district in.
well, I think instead of historic district, you can see just below that, it says Blackstone Historic Business District. And maybe that's the proper terminology.
Right, but y'all agree that it needs to, that
Correct.
should
Yeah,
say
should
historical
You
district.
need to differentiate between the two.
Okay. Alright, so we know where we stand on this, you're gonna work on the letter, y'all will work on it together, and we'll get that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, unless you have something else, I think we've covered the highlights.
Does anybody on the committee have anything else?
No.
Meeting adjourned at 2:45.
Miss Doris Wynn,
Hold on, let me cut this off.
how are you? Oh, I'm sorry.